Salute to you, the Grim Rider crew. I am Nick the Noob. Normally, I try to film these videos going in for the day. So this is actually a day 3, day 4 recap. And we'll start with day 3. Now I left day 3 and was going to do a little nighttime video, but the quality doesn't turn out quite right. So that didn't happen, and because I was running late for day 4, that also didn't happen, so I'm doing this now. So starting with day 3. Day 3 shattered me to my core. There's no other way to put it. It humbled me. In every regard, a rider can be humbled. Namely, because I put this bike down. And I put it down in a somewhat glorious fashion, you could say. For those of you that are new to riding, and those of you who already ride, you know this. You don't brake in a curve. You don't brake while that wheel is turned. You just don't do that because you'll go down. That's just that's laws of physics. So that being said, I also wasn't in a curve when this happened. I was going in a straight line. And now, if you recall, if you've been keeping up with these videos, I've had a problem with this bike since the first day I rode it, because the clutch doesn't work right and the shifter also doesn't work right. Now, I'm the kind of person that blames himself before the tool. So I'm not blaming the bike. It was still my fault, but the bike didn't help. Now, the way this went down is I'm supposed to be going in a straight line. I couldn't hammer the shifter into second gear. Now, you've got to kick these things pretty hard, even on a regular bike, but this one you got to kick a little extra hard. You can't just tow it in. And I was getting frustrated with that on day 3 and just kept putting it in neutral. So in one of these points where I put it in neutral, I tried to hammer it into second gear in the process, hammered the throttle a little bit, so I picked up a little bit more speed than I wanted, panicked, hit the brakes. I hit the brakes so hard, you know, I didn't just get a nice grip, or what they call threshold braking in the class. I hammered them brakes pretty hard and went for a good 5-foot skid, and in that process forced the wheel to turn. That's what made me go down. Then I rolled out of it. Fortunately for me, I've got a little history in backyard wrestling and know how to take a bump. So when I went down, it did a glorious roll, kind of like Willy Wonka in the film. He puts the cane in, he does a little roll, stands right up, and there ain't nothing wrong with it. And that's what I did when I took this bike down. And I put this bike down harder than anybody else that in this class has put a bike down. So it was pretty fantastic. But I came out of it totally unscathed, totally uninjured. Fortunately, I'm in a parking lot, not out on the street. So I'm not worried about getting hit by a semi-truck or anything like that. And I managed to come out of that unscathed. Bumped my toe a little bit on my steel toe. It's still kind of sore, but yeah, you can live with little things like that. Now, fortunately, what I learned from that is I'm grateful that I'm taking a class. And I highly recommend you guys out there taking a class, because if you make this mistake, not taking a course, not taking safety training, you'll do this in the street and you're going to get hurt worse than a little stub toe. So that's really my recommendation here. So I don't regret this happening. Also, as a plus side, taking this bike down, I've officially gone down now. I can, even though it's in a parking lot during a safety training course, okay, I can now mark myself amongst riders who have gone down. It doesn't mean it won't happen again, but at least in this instance, I'm already in this category. And with that being said, I actually managed to get on the bike with a little bit more confidence and focus. I got right back on that horse. I didn't let it buck me off and say, hey, I'm never getting on this horse again. No, instead, I got on this bike, felt good, felt focused, and most of the rest of day 3 went pretty well. For the rest of the circuit that we were riding and so forth, I took rather graciously. So all of those were good things. These were good things that happened for putting this bike down. What really hurt my pride the most, what really put me in a pretty poor frame of mind, is the last practice of the day that we were doing were figure eights in a box. It's basically to practice U-turns and S-curves. And if you've taken a riding course in the past, if you've already done this, you'll know what I'm talking about. For new riders out there, I anticipate that bit will humble you a little bit. Doesn't seem like much, but you're taking basically the sharpest turn this bike can take at pretty much the slowest speed a bike will turn at. And it doesn't seem like it'd be that frustrating, but for me, wildly frustrating. I couldn't stay in the box. I was too worried about tipping it over again. It kind of turned into a disaster. And part of what I learned from that experience was how stiff I am as a rider. I've been making this mistake since before the classes started and didn't realize how stiff I had been behind these bars. I don't let these handlebars take the angles they're supposed to, and I'm locking up, and I'm trying to force this bike to do things it isn't designed to do. It's not quite like riding a bicycle. You know, you got an engine underneath of you now. It's a little bit of a different experience. So, leaving day 3, I was very humbled, very depressed, very discouraged. I really didn't know if I was going to make it through this class at that point. It was very frustrating. But I brushed myself off. I went to sleep and came in for day 4, a little refreshed. At least I felt that way in the beginning. So to cover day 4, I go in. Now, granted, these practices are going to get harder, not easier. They're going to get harder. They're going to involve more techniques, and they're going to utilize techniques of your previous practices to get you ready for the street. All good things. All good things, but for a new rider and all that, can be a little frustrating. So I went through pretty much all of day 4 unscathed. I didn't take this bike down in a glorious fashion or anything like that. There was a practice we had to do that was designed to teach you how to take a curve, a sharp curve, mind you, but how to take a curve and kind of at slower speed. And it's a little circuit that they call the peanut. And it's basically a curve, and you got to get up to second gear in a straightaway, and then slow down for the curve, come around, do an S curve, and rinse and repeat, essentially. And you're supposed to stay in second gear for the whole thing, and for good reasons. And it also teaches you how to, have an approach speed as they teach you in the class and so forth, to brake coming into the curve and not while in it, so that way you ain't dumping it in the curve and all that good stuff. Also, that was part of the practices I took for day 4 also, is stopping in a curve. You got to straighten the bike back out while you're in the curve and stop it. And that was a little nerve-wracking, a little jarring, especially how I felt from day 3. So I hadn't fully recovered from my discouragement, my depression from the previous day. Well, with that being said, when we went to do the peanut, they kept saying this is a fun one, and they weren't being sarcastic. They were trying to tell us that we were going to enjoy this part of the class because we're at a slightly higher speed. We're leaning, taking curves, all that stuff, and that it would be a little bit more fun, and we're going to be in a circuit, and it would be pretty decent. But at the time, for some unknown reason to me, I was terrified. I was just, I was in a position where my heart was beating out of my chest. I really thought about, just taking a break for a second, let the class kind of do this, and then I would get involved, or I don't know. But I was freaking out. I was freaking out in my head. And for new riders that do want to take a safety course and all this, my advice to you is don't do that. Don't get stuck in your head. It's a big mistake. It was a big mistake that I was making, and it made me very, very tense, very stiff, and all those are bad things, and they could be potentially catastrophic if you lock up too hard and you hammer the brakes too hard, like I did when I crashed the bike or whatever. So try to be relaxed, try to stay out of your head, and just take things as they go. But I did get on that bike. I didn't cheat my way out of this. I was going to do it, and I did it. I got on it. I got in that circuit, and it was a little bit more fun. Once I started telling myself, chill out, man. Once I told myself to relax, taking these leans actually did start to feel a little good. I was like, oh, this feels pretty nice. Bobbing and weaving this bike a little bit, you know, I'm not just going in a straight line. This is all right. This is good practice, you know. So it alleviated some of my fear. And it was basically the last thing we did for the night too. So day 4 turned out okay. It was very educational. I did learn a lot through day 4. Now, hopefully, that'll translate to my riding on the street in the future. Now, I will tell you, I have an update for day 5. Did I, or did I not, pass this class? We will find out on the Shattered Glass Saloon. There, I will do an update with the Grim Rider, D, if you will. We're going to do this together, and we're going to recap my whole week, how I felt, what it was like, the whole experience. We're going to do a whole thing on that, and it's going to be wonderful. And we'll find out there if I passed or failed, and if I'm going to keep riding or not. After 3 and 4, day 3 and 4, I'm not so sure. So we'll find out then. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be the big update, and hopefully I'll have good news. So until then, salute. I'll catch you on down the road.